Imagine two people named Sarah and Mike. They both decide to retire on the exact same day, which is January 1st, 2026. They are both dedicated professionals who have worked for over 30 years. They have both managed to save exactly $1 million in their retirement accounts. They both plan to withdraw $40,000 this year to cover their living expenses. They are even invested in the exact same low-cost index funds. Fast forward 20 years into the future. Logic tells us that because they started with the same amount and had the same goals, they should end up in the same place. But here is the terrifying reality of the financial world in 2026. 15 years from now, Mike is completely broke. He has run out of money and is forced to sell the home he worked his entire life to own just to survive. Sarah, on the other hand, still has over $1.4 million left in her account and is living a life of total comfort. How is this possible when their average annual returns were identical at 7%? The answer is simple. It is shocking, and it is a lesson almost never taught in standard financial literacy courses. It is a hidden mathematical trap that proves average returns are completely meaningless when you stop working. This phenomenon is known as the sequence of returns risk. If you are someone who believes that as long as you hit your savings number, you are safe, you need to listen very closely. In 2026, the economic landscape has changed, and the old rules of thumb are failing many hardworking people. Today, I am going to prove to you that when you retire matters significantly more than how much money you retire with. I will show you the specific math behind this brutal risk and how it acts as a silent tax on early retirement. Most importantly, I will give you the 3 defensive strategies to build a moat around your savings, so you never end up like Mike. The fundamental flaw in most retirement planning is a total reliance on the average return. When you use an online calculator, you usually plug in a steady number like 7 or 8%. The calculator then assumes you get that exact return every single year in a smooth, predictable line. This is a fatal assumption because the stock market never moves in a straight line. In the real world, the order in which those returns happen is exponentially more important than the average itself. Mike was incredibly unlucky with his timing. His first 3 years of retirement, starting in 2026, were brutal for the markets. He started with his $1 million, but faced a 5% loss in year 1, followed by a 10% loss in year 2. Even though he saw a 20% gain in year 3, the damage was already done. Because he was forced to withdraw $40,000 every year to pay for groceries and utilities from a shrinking pool of money, he was selling his stocks at their lowest point. This created what we call negative compounding. It is a financial poison that drains a portfolio faster than any market crash alone ever could. By selling low, Mike guaranteed those funds would never be there to participate in the eventual market recovery. Now let's look at Sarah's journey. She was lucky enough to experience the exact same returns as Mike, but in a completely different order. She started her first year with a 20% gain, which built a massive cushion before the market dipped. Even when she faced the same losses later on, she was withdrawing her $40,000 from a much larger pool of capital. Mathematically, their 20-year average return was exactly the same. But because Mike faced early losses combined with mandatory withdrawals, he entered a death spiral from which he could never escape. His portfolio collapsed at the worst possible time, while Sarah thrived. This highlights the psychological and mathematical trap that every retiree must face. Your risk is not static throughout your retirement years. In fact, your risk is hyper-concentrated in a specific 10-year window. I call this period the red zone. The red zone starts 5 years before you retire and ends 5 years after you stop working. During this decade, market timing is everything. A single bad sequence of years can lead to total failure, even if your initial savings were perfect. The problem is that most people approach risk backwards because of how they were taught during their working years. When you are young and still saving, volatility is actually your best friend. When the market dips in your 30s, your monthly contributions buy more shares at a discount. The sequence of returns does not matter much then because you are constantly injecting new capital. But once you enter the distribution phase, where you stop adding money and start taking it out, volatility becomes your greatest enemy. A crash in the first decade of retirement is catastrophic because you are locking in losses just to cover your monthly bills. You cannot predict what the market will do in 2026 or 2027, but you can build a defensive moat. The goal is to eliminate the absolute need to sell your stocks during a market downturn in the first 10 years. This requires a fundamental shift in how you allocate your money as you approach your retirement date. The single most effective way to manage this risk is through the bucket strategy. This allows you to segment your money based on when you actually need it, creating a barrier between your spending and the market's whims. The first layer of your defense is the cash moat. This involves holding 3 to 5 years worth of your living expenses entirely in cash or high-yield savings accounts. This money is not meant for growth. It is meant for protection against immediate volatility. If the market crashes 30% on the very first day of your retirement, you simply draw from this cash for the next few years. This leaves your stock portfolio untouched, giving it the time it needs to recover without forcing you to sell at a loss. The second layer is the bond buffer. This bucket should hold 5 to 7 years worth of expenses in intermediate-term bonds or fixed income assets. This serves as your second line of defense. If the market has not fully recovered by the time your cash moat is empty, you liquidate these bonds instead of your stocks. Finally, the third bucket is your growth engine. This holds the remainder of your savings in a diversified portfolio of stocks. Because you have the first two buckets protecting your immediate needs, you know this money has a 10-year time horizon. This allows your growth engine to survive multiple recessions and benefit fully from the power of compounding over the long run. Every year, if the market has been positive, you simply refill your cash moat from the gains in your growth engine. But if the market has crashed, you wait and let the first two buckets absorb the shock. This structure gives your primary wealth engine the time it needs to recover without locking in permanent losses. Beyond, most people assume they will withdraw a fixed dollar amount every single year, regardless of what is happening in the world. This is a dangerous strategy during the red zone. To survive in 2026, you must employ a dynamic withdrawal strategy. If your portfolio is up significantly in a good year, you might allow yourself a small bonus for travel or a large purchase. However, the most important part is what you do in the bad years. If your portfolio is down 15%, you must commit to cutting your spending by a fixed percentage, such as 5 to 10%. A small sacrifice in spending during the first few years of a market dip can save your entire retirement 15 years later. The goal is not to live in poverty, it is to have the flexibility to protect your core principle. There is also a very potent defense that many people overlook, which involves creating a temporary income stream. If Mike had worked a low-stress consulting job for just $20,000 a year during his first 5 years of retirement, his situation would be different. His necessary withdrawals from his savings would have dropped drastically, mitigating the damage of the early market losses. This is why many people in 2026 are choosing to work part-time or engage in passion projects as they transition out of the full-time workforce. Protecting your principal during the red zone is the most important financial task you will ever have. The psychological toll of the sequence of returns risk is immense, because it happens at the moment you are supposed to be celebrating. You may feel like but you cannot let. The solution is not to simply save millions and millions more. The solution is to acknowledge the reality of the red zone and build the proper structural defenses. Sequence of returns risk is not a death sentence for your dreams. It is a known variable that can be managed with discipline and a clear strategy. Do not let the illusion of average returns lull you into a false sense of security. Embrace the power of the buckets, adopt a flexible mindset regarding your spending, and beat the market's bad timing. When you take control of the math, you take control of your future. As we move through 2026, remember that financial freedom is not just about the number in your bank account. It is about having the peace of mind to know that your lifestyle is protected regardless of what the headlines say. Take the time today to look at your allocation and ask yourself if you are truly prepared for a downturn in the red zone. If you are not, Now is the time to start building your moat. Your future self will thank you for the discipline you showed today. I will see you in the next analysis as we continue to decode the hidden traps of the financial world.